All right. Let me know if you can see me, if you can hear me. I can see a few people joined in. The usual thing, I need to check up, but I'm actually coming through, and you can see me, you can hear me. I see Eric in the chat. Is anyone else gonna say anything? Let me know if you can hear me, if you can see me, before we can kick off. Let me see if I'm actually... Yeah, cool. Hey, Kenneth. I wonder who else is gonna join us. I think we're gonna slowly trickle in with a lot of different people. Adriana is here, Lucas as well. Awesome. All right, so we have quite a few. Amanj as well. Awesome. So we have a few people. It's good to actually crack on so we don't waste time. Obviously, thanks so much for tuning in, because what we're going to discuss today is Cursor AI. And I have a lot of thoughts to share about it, actually. And what does that mean for product design, design engineering, but also probably how does that tie in design and development or coding, and how does that kind of, shrinks that gap between the two subjects, or how we used to take requirements or ideas we used to prototype in different environments and then have to translate basically in code. But ultimately everything we do in UX, or most of the digital touchpoints when we design them, they end up being in code. Therefore, the closer you can get to the code, obviously the better. It's more efficient, you can achieve more, you can rapidly prototype and fail quicker yourself. That's really the reason to do UX to begin with. So you don't have to invest as much time, tying in the use cases and shaping your solution. You kind of can get to the results quicker. And Cursor AI is, it's an IDE. I know a lot of the people who might be watching this, maybe you're going to be rewatching this later, or, whoever is right now on the stream. I see quite a few people. You might be familiar with development to an extent. Maybe you're not. Like, there is a lot of kind of, I'm going to try to make it as beginner friendly as possible. But having said that, some of the things are definitely going to be way above the beginner level. And that's for the right reasons, because again, still, we are just at that start of a generative AI being applied to language, to code, to to design, to everything in between. And as such, we are still adding it to the existing environment. So for example, the Cursor AI is really just another tool. If you have heard of VS Code, let's say, for development, it's just another app to do the development, but it allows you to prompt and use the Claude, let's say, or ChatGPT or other models, which you can select yourself, and request it for them to use all the other bits, like the GitHub repositories and all the existing code they could have reached before or learned from, and give you close enough results. And the close enough results are mind-blowing. I'm just going to really quickly show the demo so I don't have to waffle too much. I hope that the actual sound comes through. But it's going to be easier to introduce you to what it is before we actually go on a deep end.
Hello, this is Cursor, the nicest and most powerful way to code with AI. Cursor comes with uniquely intelligent autocomplete capabilities. In addition to normal end-of-line predictions, Cursor can complete over multiple lines and can even suggest entire diffs. One of Cursor's core features is Command K, which lets you write code in plain English. For instance, we can add a new state variable
immediately you can see it's super technical, and I like that the makers itself, I think, want to target the developers, but what I'm going to show you today is going to be much more oriented towards product design, so that you, with a limited understanding in HTML, CSS, JavaScript, maybe a bit of Git, maybe a bit of server-side rendering technologies, you should be able to pick it up, because I don't think they're doing it justice by showing
when you have a question for the AI, the chat is just one keystroke
I guess
away.
maybe this actual example is pretty
selections,
good, because you have this chat mode, and you can literally chat with your command line interface, this app, and then get some results and apply them instantly, which is fascinating to say the least. But their demo is way too technical, if you ask me. What I'm going to show you is going to be much more applicable. Cool, right. So this is what Cursor AI is to begin with. What I'm going to do And let me just actually pull up the cursor. So this is Cursor as an app. Like you can, you can create your repositories locally, you can make it server side, and you can use Git and things of that nature. But what it allows you really to do is to create a project. And as you can see, I have quite a few projects here. Working on this thing, which is product design news, just as an experiment. I spent a couple of hours the other week. Literally cloned the Hacker News, but added a lot of different functionality just using prompts. And I don't think I'm going to demo that today, even though that's a bit more advanced. It uses React, a bit of a Next.js, I guess, additive to that, but I think it would be too complex. So maybe I'm going to do part 2, which you need to let me know in the comments if you want to see that, or maybe make a series as well if that's useful at all. I don't know if it is. I think this really session is going to be focusing on a demo and like just opening your mind and giving you the spark, that perspective that, hey, damn, this actually could mean a lot of different things for yourself, for how you do the work, and so forth. Anyway, so let me actually demo it. So what we're going to do today, let me close that down. I'm going to just make a new folder, I guess, in my repos folder, and I'm going to call it, let's say, SaaS dashboard. And I'm gonna let's just call it like that, right? And this is where I'm gonna put that project, which I'm gonna demo and show a few bits of how to set it up. And this is in simple repo. I'm gonna just open that folder. And that's where my project it would be. And now, obviously, if you haven't worked with CLI or any development interfaces, you probably are going to be quite disappointed, because is this really AI tool? It is. And I think they've done it right because it's very familiar for the actual users, like developers. I think the next iteration should be for them to make it much more approachable for someone like a designer or a product manager, so that we can actually, feel invited and maybe even have some examples of how to get started. As you can see, I literally just created an empty folder. And one thing which you can do immediately, I don't know if I'm overreaching a bit, but really to create a file like, let's say, index.html, and that's where your code for HTML, CSS, and JavaScript would be, right? Like that's very manual way to start. I know some of you might think this is way too basic, but that's how usually people start. Before I jump into that, you obviously can still do manual labor and you can still learn to code, and you actually should, because some of the things like the HTML itself, the CSS, the JavaScript, something you still would need to know enough to use Cursor today. In the future, you probably won't need to do that as much because you're probably going to hide the code underneath. But right now, if you want to adopt this tool, you kind of have to know just a bit. And it doesn't take that long. And I know it's a pretty long preface, but I think it's important. Because if you can spend a weekend learning HTML, which is very easy, it's like the most easiest thing to do right now. Back in the day, it took me maybe a couple of weeks, but I didn't really pay attention. If you really focus and you immerse yourself, it's really easy to pick it up, especially to start building. That's all you need. And then the intricacies you can learn by deconstructing existing code or looking what's behind the scenes. For the CSS, same thing as well, because to style things, you kind of, you're going to Google, obviously. You're going to look up, how can I do this border radius? And, use that parameter basically and add that. Or same applies to JavaScript too, which is level up. But once you know the foundations, let's say, I don't know, if you would go through the lesson of intro, statements, variables, I think if you go to events, that's where I would probably stop, but that could take you literally a day, and that would be enough to get started with Cursor AI. I know a lot of developers are probably like shaking right now, even if they're obviously not target audience, but if they would be like, yeah, you need to learn more, but you don't have to. That's what I'm going to showcase today. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take a random product And that's the beauty of Cursor, because you can literally take something which doesn't exist or exists. I tried, let's say, taking linear website, product linear website. I tried to do, again, the Hacker News clone. I tried to do a mobile app. I tried to create the dashboard, and I think that's where the interesting bit, to me at least, was. But you could do literally anything what you want. Obviously, I'm going to give a credit to Usman and Daco, I think, who is creator of this, but we're going to use their ideas and take that dashboard and try to implement it in Cursor AI. So what I'm going to do, really, let me just export that as a 1x JPEG, let's say. Just a very simple representation of a dashboard. Boom, it's there. And then I'm just going to go back to my Cursor IDE and open my chat, and this is how you literally use it in Cursor, because you can literally tell Cursor right now, generate a simple HTML CSS JS page containing a sidebar, a menu, something else. Basically, that's probably enough to start, and I could just hit enter, and it would give me the code already of a very simple page. I don't know what it looks like right now yet, but I could literally just apply that, and it adds in the existing code editor or in existing thing. Let me just accept that, and can literally just save this and go back to my repository if I can find it. Do let me know, by the way, what you think in the comments, because it's gonna be even more interesting. Okay, so this is what it generated. A very simple bare bones, right? Now, if I would want to do something more with it, I could literally tell it back in the chat, say, apply Tailwind CSS, which is a CSS library, let's say. And restyle all elements. I'm not being also quite specific with this. So it reproduces the content. Okay, let's see if that actually makes a change. As you can see, it would add inline styles. Obviously, you don't have to know. The more you know about the code, like HTML, CSS, and things of that nature, the JavaScript, you would then know exactly what's going on. For example, I know that this the cursor wants to delete this fragment of the body of the actual content part and then replace it with something else in green. And same here. For example, it's just gonna add tailwindcss.com script and replace that inline CSS. So I can just accept it. It shortened it. Let's see if that's gonna make a change. Probably won't, because I'm not being too specific yet. Where did it go? Okay. Yeah, it didn't. It maybe cleaned up a little bit, but that's about that. So that's how you basically can start, making a simple HTML, CSS page. Obviously, this is not too impressive, right? Like if I would say something like restyle the page to look like Matrix in green and black, and animate the background with, what's that raining letters thing? Let's just say raining letters. I'm probably just gonna confuse it, but you're gonna see that it's gonna do something with that. It likely could take out existing elements, but let's see, did it generate the code? It did. Let me just apply that. There's a lot of changes. Again, if you're savvy with code, you can go for it. I'm just gonna wing it. I'm just gonna apply it and save the HTML page. And boom, I have a page which is matrix style, except it doesn't animate it. So maybe I need to be more specific, right? Animate the background with, I don't know what's that raining maybe, I don't know what I want to, so it's a prompt engineering issue. It's my issue more than anything. Right, okay, so it added some matrix rain animation. Maybe it's understood what I want. Let's see if that is. As you can see, it even tells me exactly what the key changes are, things of that nature, but let's apply that. And I didn't even intend to do this, by the way, so yeah, okay, let's open it again. Yeah, boom. So I created this funky 90s style page, and obviously I could tell no cursor, slow down the letters, for example, right? And then it can do, I can also do that inline, which I haven't used by the way before. So I know I can do it, I just don't know how. But as you can see, it can just do that inline. So instead of 5 ms, it does it in 8 ms. That's more like matrix style. So that's it. So it took me maybe 10 minutes to do this, right? With a lot of yapping and explaining, but that should give you an insight of like, okay, I could actually do something with it. And obviously you can add more pages, you can add more styles. It's all done inline. And you can do a lot of other bits and bobs here, right? Let me just see if that latest version, okay, I presented that. Cool. All right. So that's where I'm going to end it. I'm just going to delete everything here. I'm just going to resave it. And let me see what the comments are like. Cursor AI looks like more for design engineers than product designers. However, a good product designer should be able to understand the process. I do agree to an extent, but I also think that those roles, again, are going to shape up to be very different than what we know right now. Because you can imagine this is not just about Cursor AI. It's also like how are we going to interact with Figma eventually? Because every tool now is going to piggyback and build up on this interaction principles, knowledge, the needs it solves, the ideas generally, the IP, the Figma, like Figma literally could implement something prompt-based to do additional stuff like that. But to me, because we have Figma, we have Storybook, we have a lot of different tools which basically take the same information or similar information and translate it into different means, that immediately creates a lot of pain points. And if we just UX how we do a product design right now, you can immediately think that this could be improved, or like the things we do from product design could literally be sped up at a minimum. I can see that there is some issues from YouTube. Maybe the stream is not smooth, so do let me know in the comments. I can slow down or repeat something, but let's crack on. I think it's super exciting stuff. So the best bit about Cursor, by the way, and this is exactly if you are not, let's say if you don't know enough HTML or CSS, my advice would be, and you want to learn enough about design engineering because it's going to be relevant at some point to an extent, you should really start by breaking down apps and websites and things you like, so you know exactly how to improve and hack it. I think most of you, especially in product design, learned by copying, right? Like that's just how we do. We steal like artists, to borrow the title of a really great book by Joe McLeod, I think, or I'm probably getting wrong the author right now, but it's ultimately we learn by copying. Like that's just human. It's like, you learn the behaviors, you learn the styles, you learn how you think, things of that nature. We copy all the different thinking and decision-making models, and this is exactly the same thing. So what I want to do next is really, I'm just going to demo what would happen if I were to attach that SaaS dashboard mockup. As you can see, I added an image, and I'm just going to tell it to generate a SaaS dashboard attach image. I know that it's not going to maintain the styles, but I always tell it to maintain the styles, element position, content layout, etc. I'm not gonna tell it more because that's a point. Like if you were to take someone else's design or your own design, it's not gonna make it like one-to-one, but that's how you kind of chip at it and make it better. Obviously, I think with better prompts you could achieve better results, but my experience so far has been that you kind of have to work with it. You kind of have to see what it is and break it apart. ABJ Jeet, is there a way to feed cursor a Figma prototype and get interaction and page flows that you can actually navigate? I don't think yet. So even in this demo, ABJ, literally I took a Figma image and I made it flat, and I went into cursor. Ooh, I'm getting lost. I went into cursor and I fed it and I said generate me this background, and if I apply that, don't really like how little it is, so it's probably going to be very basic, but let me just save that to see exactly where we ended up. Okay, it's very bare, right? So now what I would do, I would literally go back to my screenshot, to that flat, and I'm just gonna try to go bit by bit because it's way too much information. That's why what I figured out of cursor, if you give it like a really polished mockup, you're then gonna need to go and basically make adjustments. So let me just go bit by bit. Screenshots. All right, let's add that. All right, let me specify to include icons, logo, maintain margins. I don't know what else was there in that mockup. I don't remember now. Let me see. Really quickly pull it up. Okay, what else? Logout button. Okay, that should be plenty, I think. Let's see what does that gives it. One use case, Axel says a lot of the stuff I can't understand. Can one use case this could be used for traditional designers would be to use a plugin to convert Figma mockups into HTML, CSS, and use natural language to update, modify the code for interaction. Yeah, it could be, but I also would challenge you not to get attached too much to Figma or any other tool, because this is like a level up, right? Okay, so let me just apply what it generated. I'm not even looking what it actually does. All right, so it's styling a lot of navigation. As you can see, it added quite a few different bits. It's using, I think, Tailwind right now. Yeah, it's using Tailwind. And then other structural bits, not gonna read into it. Just apply blindly. Let's see. Okay, that looks much better, right? Immediately we leveled it up a bit, quite a bit. That's the generated thing, and this is the original. Now, as a designer, you probably are gonna be like, oh, it's not perfect. Oh, like the style is not there. It acts like a junior developer who just took a design and just said, this is good enough, right? Like we all felt that pain at some point. But still, this is really impressive if you ask me. And that's just because it's a start. Like if I really want to chip at it, I can chip at it. I can literally tell it to reduce the increase the margin between icons and navigation text. make the icons line icons and make it less dark gray. I'm just winging it. Obviously, you would spend more time, and I would spend more time trying to chip at it. But let me see what that actually does. One thing what annoys me, I don't think it knows how to take apart code. So let's say the CSS style would naturally go to a CSS file. The JavaScript would go to JavaScript. So it bunches up if you start from scratch in one go. Okay, so it added a margin. I'm just going to add that in. And then let's see what other changes. Okay, I think it ignored the rest of my suggestions. Let me just save and see. No, that's not the right one. Where did the ever go? Right, okay, so it increased a few bits. Still, icons are not line icons. Let me chase it up. I think it's gonna understand what I mean, because again, it copies what it knows or what's there in Tailwind, right? Like I don't really remember if Tailwind allows line icons at all. Feather replace. Okay, it's gonna add feather icons. All right, let's apply. Let's just replace whole icons with feather icons. Did it change the actual code? Accept. Yeah, I can't see if it actually added the script. Another thing with cursor AI, and this is a meta point, but it's quite annoying. I know that for developers maybe it matters less, but for someone like a designer or full-time designer or design engineer, this interaction between kind of, you know, it's code, it looks the same, but also your interaction with cursor is the same. It like blends everything together. It's sometimes really hard to see what change were made by, you know, the chat, the actual cursor AI as an AI. Okay, let me just test it. I don't see it changing anything. No, it didn't change. Maybe I need to manually add it. Let me just copy it in. If I remember correctly, I could just add script in line. Challenge me if, oh, actually, yeah, okay, I'm not doing the right thing. You see it's suggesting also adding it there. Let me just add the whole bulk. Okay, that looks a bit better. Yeah, and it added some additional classes. Cool. Boom. That looks pretty good, right? Or much better than what we had so far. So this is the original, which I ported, just gave it and said generate me something like this, and this is what it made me, right? So now I can do whatever I want, but what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna literally refer to what we had in that Figma file. And this is where, you know, my workflow would be now to go bit by bit and recreate the charts or things of that nature. I might just do that exactly. So I think I'm gonna just go block by block and just maybe add a few bits. because again, it gets overwhelmed clearly. If you give it too many orders, it just goes, to places and it doesn't really produce anything. But this is one page, right? Let me see what the chat says. Do you feel empowered now that you are not a programmer, but you can deliver code? Did you experience frustration before understanding how to communicate with AI? Well, so my background is, it's a bit different. And this is maybe, Adriana, I don't know if you directed at me or at someone in the chat. Maybe I'm getting it wrong, but I did study web development back in the day and spent years crafting like iOS apps and Android apps myself, and have a good grasp of like PHP, CSS, HTML. That's why I think it's most impressive, because I kind of understand, where we headed with that. Like I could literally write the code myself and spend weeks doing something like that. For example, what we did just in the last 20 minutes with this, the styling and things of that nature could take me hours or maybe a day if I'm very picky and adding these things. But obviously I could invest, the more time I would invest, the better it would be, or more pixel perfect would be. But just functionality wise, because I can literally tell, this app or cursor, and you can do it for any type of language as well. That's where the mind-blowing part is, because you can do it in React or just pure JavaScript. But I could tell the app is actually to insert tabs, or maybe functional, actually no, make the links in the nav in the sidebar, tab the content on the right, and add headlines for each of the tabbed content pieces. I don't know if it's going to understand, but my point is that I'm very shocked and impressed from just someone who's aware of the coding languages and all the challenges and things of that nature. But again, the gap between design engineering, product design, and pure coding is just literally shrinking just with this demo. And I think because, again, the core issue is that we translate a lot of ideas in different environments and everything still ends up being code. That's why this is like a step one in a lot of other steps. Let me just see what it's going to do. So it added navigation, added some other bits, I guess the tabs, tab content, things of that nature. I'm just going to apply that. Again, this is now becoming messy because, yeah, so this is what it gave me. Not really what I wanted. Did I miss anything? Maybe I'm just not being clear with my prompts, which is usually the case. I kind of disagree with Adriana, as I'm learning front-end as a product designer, and having AI code Figma components, for me, it's a time saver. I watched a lot of your content. It's great. Cool. Thank you. I think one of the things which we do need to consider as product designers, UX designers, or someone who's dabbled in engineering is, I'm going to give you a scenario. For example, everyone is probably going to be involved in these agile circles and cycles of, you produce a design and you work with engineer and they have to chip to make it pixel perfect, especially at the high-end products. But with the tools like that, you don't have to go back to Figma and craft these specific guidelines for your engineer. You can literally jump into the code base. You can replicate the GitHub repo. Obviously not going to go technical in that, because I know to a lot of people it's not going to make sense, but you create basically an instance of a code of that app, and you can literally tweak the things yourself as a designer so that your programmer, a coder, or someone who actually could focus on these bigger meaty challenges can focus on these bigger meaty challenges. You can basically be that maestro who has their design on a side, and when you tweak smaller bits and bobs here, no longer you're gonna be scared of accessibility or things of that nature. Like, for example, if I'm gonna add this prompt for this app, insert a login form, let's say, or something like that. No longer you're gonna need to be scared that it's not accessible, because you can tell the cursor AI or any other tool in the future, make it accessible, or increase this to be visible, or add an error message, or behave this way or the other way, so that, let's say, you double check the email before you submit, or like a lot of these conditional things. You don't no longer need to go through your product manager, create a ticket, wait a few weeks for a next sprint or like to be planned in. Like, all of these things could be tied in and updated like that by anyone, really, by anyone empowered. And I think a good example of that is Gumroad. And Gumroad runs like a different company, right? Like, but they now, from what I saw on Twitter, from their leader, Sahil, and basically they're empowering anyone to use Cursor. So their sales staff, their designers, their engineers, everybody uses Cursor as a go-to tool right now, and they can use the GitHub to version control and make it better. And every designer, when I asked specifically, could a designer just make any changes wherever they want? Roughly the answer was, of course they can, but a more senior developer then is going to review their submitted code and going to ensure that it's good enough or not, and they're going to tweak it. So what it does, what tools like that does for product designers or anyone else, content designers, product managers, is open up the gates for anyone to contribute into this. Because anyone can submit. It doesn't mean it's going to land in the end, but it's going to land closer enough, and the engineers can update it closer enough. Again, depends on the problem. But let's say if I would add, insert a contact us form with a submit button and validation for each field, so that if they are empty, the submit button is inactive. Very simple accessibility tweak, right? Let's just see if that actually gonna add. I'm gonna make this such a mess case, by the way. This is another thing with AI generated code, that it adds way too much of code, which is, I guess, why we still gonna need a lot of the people who know what they're doing. Okay, so it added contact support, email, message, submit button, and let's see what sort of validation, if it added at all. I don't see any. Okay, it did. So it's gonna add some sort of vanilla JavaScript. Is valid true, inputs. So it's gonna check each of the inputs. If they're empty, it's gonna make it invalid. So let me just apply and test it. I just don't know where it added it. Let me see, where did you go? Contact support. Okay, let's see if we add that. No, it doesn't want to do it. Okay, let me troubleshoot. Oh, I have too many instances open. We're going back in time. Make the contact support button open a page with the contact form generated before. I have another good example which I'm gonna add after we figure this out, because now I need to solve it just to demonstrate my point. Yeah, too much code. Or I would at least like it to be split in separate CSS file in a separate like styles CSS, and also js.js, let's say, for originality point. All right, let me see if I can apply. By the way, has anyone tried Cursor so far? How did you find it? If you did, especially for those who maybe are less tech savvy. Okay, I don't know if this is actually creating more of a spaghettis. Okay, contact support. Okay, so now it works, right? Just would want it to update. Okay, if I submit, it doesn't give me. So add a warning message if so if you see, like, I can build up the actual UI bit by bit, like idea by idea. That to me is the most impressive thing, because no longer do I have to spend again hours or days. I can literally just chip at it. Okay, so it's gonna add a message. Let's apply that. Okay. Contact support. Okay, so it does do something. Yeah, okay, so it does validate a few bits here. And let's see if I like to just reinforce my example. I'm just gonna say, when submitting, if the field is empty or doesn't, how to say, if it's not or it doesn't contain the right characters, add a big yellow border around the input field, kind of like what GDS does in gov.uk in their design system for accessibility reasons. So that's my point. It's like, imagine if a developer takes your designs, and this is very immediate use case too. You take your designs, we implement this form, but the margins are off, the text is off, the behavior is off. You know that it's going to fail the user testing, or perhaps accessibility is not going to be good enough. You literally can go replicate the repo. You can make different bits here or chip in, submit it so your developer can, check it out, and that's about it. In that case, you don't need to prototype in Figma and tell your developer, hey, each form has to have this yellow border or something like that. You can literally just make it here, because doing designs in Figma is wasteful, because they are a communication tool. It's only a source of truth until it gets to, until it hits the ground running, until it's actually shipped, because after that it's just an archived reference, which usually collects dust. So let me see if actually that worked. I'm pretty sure I'm creating a lot of bugs. All right, contact support. Well, still doesn't. Okay, yeah, so now it does. Okay, behavior is obviously iffy here, and you would want to tweak, but I hope my point came across. And I like that actual Cursor knew that it should be a separate page, because when I initially said add this to the landing page, you know, I thought it would just literally add a form immediately. So you can do this. And again, this is in, you know, it's HTML, CSS, and so forth. Let me just ask it to put them into styles.css and do the same with JavaScript. Let's see if I enter, because last time I checked that just to kind of split the different components into different files, it didn't. So it just tells me what to do basically. Okay, in HTML, do this. In style CSS, do that. In script JS, which in my case is js.js. Let me just rename it. It does that. Okay, so let me just apply that. And that's purely to make it easier to navigate, because the actual HTML should be quite bare. It shouldn't be as long. As you can see, this is how it should look like. And I think the beautiful thing as well, if, you know, once you, let's say you're a product designer and you're, or design engineer, and you're just starting out, you're creating these static apps or, you know, basic HTML apps with some JavaScript. Obviously, they could be so advanced. They could be animated again, like that Matrix app I shown you in the beginning. The next step would be to really go to something like Claude or ChatGPT and ask, show me how to create a React-based app with some sort of API mock, like basically, you know, a mock API, like a JS file which can be read. Do the same with something else. Basically, you can explore and make this even, you know, you can make these apps as rich as you want it to be. And what I found as well, which I might show at the end of this stream, where I'm developing this React app, because it's server side, it needs to render through terminal. You have to give commands and so forth. Just to overtly simplify it, it gives you errors. And the beauty of it is that, let me just open it. Maybe now even in debug or in terminal. No, I don't really have anything here, but I could literally copy an error and literally paste it into the chat and say correct it for me, and it's going to tell me exactly how to correct the code or correct the app code. I know this might not mean much to, you know, to people, but to me it was mind-blowing, because previously I could spend weeks or a month trying to find the answer, and then try to find the exact location where it should be tied in or what thread is missing, and then make the changes. Right now I can literally paste the error in this, and it gives me the answer, and I can apply the answer. So I don't really even need to know how it's solving it, as long as it solves it right. So it's just mind-blowing, if you ask me. Okay, let me just accept that. I'm literally just cleaning up the code. Let me apply the CSS to that file and save it. Same for HTML. And now for script, do the same. Boom. And I hope it's going to reference. So now if I reload it, it should look the same. It doesn't. What am I missing? Script.js. Oh, I didn't apply the Script.js yet. Again, there's a lot of improvements to the tool itself as a meta point, because sometimes it's confusing if it applied, if it didn't apply. You kind of need to care a lot for it to work. Okay, so our dashboard does work right now. It's all in separate different files. So this is a demo of how you could scale. You could start very small, create a page, and then scale it out. Now, the last thing on this, and obviously, you know, I'm not done yet, but let's say I'm gonna go and generate the KPI. What what am I missing? I'm blanking. Generate the metrics cards in the dashboard view as per image attached. So now we're going to go into a bit more heavy hitting. Which one was it? Like this one, for example. Components and things of that nature, because we can start adding a lot of the content in it. We can enrich it, and you could build a portfolio. Let's say you could build any site that way. Obviously, you can make it as complex as you want it to be. Cursor AI with Claude Sonnet offers faster interactions and live previews, but it lacks the intuitive interface for designing complex apps that Codex provides. Nice, I'll need to look into it. I haven't even read about Codex. I guess that requires a bit more of technical know-how and programming language, right? Do you think learning front-end development for product designer students is a good idea? It's a must. Brahms. So I started, I don't know if you were here when I was discussing, I shown people this site, W3 Schools, and that's where I learned my HTML 14 years ago, roughly, probably more, like 16 years ago. That's where I learned my HTML. It still stands because it's still up to date. This is where I would say you need to learn these lessons at the minimum to be a good product designer. You might not use the code ever, but you're gonna have the lingo, you're gonna understand how the pages are built and structured. It's ultimately like, you know, to be a good architect, you need to know what the material is like, and you need to know where the bricks are gonna go, or where the rebar is gonna go, where the concrete is gonna be laid, and to what extent where the wood is gonna meet the concrete. So you know exactly that your design or your architected solution is actually, you know, gold and good enough, if that makes sense. There's a lot of other analogies I could give you, but ultimately you need to know what happens behind the scenes enough. You cannot be, you know, I don't know what would be a good example. You cannot be a good industrial designer and design cars if you don't understand what sort of panels you're limited by, what goes where the electricals are distributed, to what extent. You don't need to know the voltage of them, but you need to know how they connect to understand where the limits are and how you can build it up where the constraints are. This is the constraints. So knowing about HTML, CSS, JavaScript is the constraints you must have. In fact, in my in the recently launched, literally the other day launched the, I know we're gonna go a bit on a tangent, but I think it's still pretty good. Yeah. On this butterfly framework, where it literally went through the skills you have to have as a product designer or UX researcher or UXer as a generalist, you can literally access this free, get the download. One of the branches within it is the web technologies, the HTML, the CSS, understanding the deeply that things, because you cannot design interactions without understanding the technicalities. But anyways, I'm gonna leave it at that because there's so much more we could discuss on it. Let me go back to the actual cursor just to see what it produced. I already missed of what we requested. I think it was the metrics, right? Boom. Gonna add that, gonna save it. Let's see what it did. Okay, so this is what it spat out, right? Obviously, it's clunky. Nothing really works here. But just to show that it's functional, before the cards, and also make the week drop down and include a monthly view. Also update the metrics to show the monthly figures. That's where we're gonna get into a more complex representation, because you can add interactions and you can literally make it show different bits and bobs, even if it's all static. The data is not coming from anywhere, but you can create that. You can literally ask it, how should I now take that figure and make and for it to come from some sort of API? How do I make the mock API first, and how I may make that connection with a server to get that to the database, to simplify it, if that makes sense. Let's see what it's gonna do here. Oh, it's still generating. Okay, it's adding this week, this month. That's a lot of code. Monthly, as you can see, it hard builds the actual data, but that's good, because now we're gonna have something interesting to see and maybe more interactive. And then JavaScript as well. Let me apply that. All right, no CSS changes, which is okay. Cool. So now, as you can see, it increased the margin between this and that. Obviously, you can tell it now change this, change the style, but you can see I asked it to create me a drop-down for monthly figures, and that doesn't work well. No, it doesn't change. It didn't understand me. Change the metrics within the cards. You see, this is the back and forth. Stress testing it already. Right, what are we saying in the chat? I missed quite a few bits and bobs. I tried codecs, very limited. I ended up with VS Code and browser, ChatGPT. But yeah, you probably know much more ABJ. You probably know more than, let's say, a casual product designer or even design engineer would, or UXer. What I'm getting from this presentation, no code AI, it is another way of prototyping for a product designer. It's more realistic and has the capability of integrating with database. Yes, Adriana, it's definitely part of that, but more so like what I want to get at is that it gives so much power for any designer to, again, do their best work working with engineers. Like, again, you don't have to rely as much, for my example, with the forms and things of that nature, accessibility tweaks. Now you can do that. You don't have to propose changes. You can literally submit the changes if you have that empowerment. And I think this gives you that. Like, if I would be an engineer leader, I would have a lot of trust in people, being able to submit something meaningful. Obviously, it's going to be a bloat code, a spaghetti code, but you can take that and then kind of like, update it, again, using Git or something along those lines. All right, it changes quite a few bits. Right, I'm going to accept that change, and then JavaScript as well. Accept. I don't know what it does. Obviously, if you have time, you read this through and you understand and you learn from it. That's a message. But because I'm lazy and I don't want to bore you, right? Okay, so now it works, right? Brilliant. This is exactly what I wanted. Let's say if I have some sort of tweak in you see it increases. Obviously, it shows random numbers for you want, right? Room temperature, so to speak. But it immediately, you can see exactly what you could do with it. As you can see, it's not really responsive, right? So next thing, let's make it responsive. Make the UI responsive and collapse the side menu into a mobile menu. Which, by the way, for me, because I'm old-timer and I haven't coded in years or meaningfully coded in years, it would take me days to craft and ship and understand how to do this with new technologies. I would be lost. But that's where the beauty of this should be. And let's see, obviously, it might not get it right from the get-go. But if it gets it right enough, that's even better. Okay, so it updated a few bits. Let's accept. Okay, breakpoints. So in the CSS, it added that maximum bandwidth, and if it's more, you obviously do something. And then JavaScript, which I think it should have been heavier on CSS than JavaScript, but I might be, again, out of touch. Let's see, styles. So I'm saving all the files. And if I collapse our dashboard, boom, right? So this is a mobile view. I mean, it's pretty damn impressive if you ask me. And especially if you are like a designer, right? So you probably wouldn't know how to do. And then it opens the menu too. Obviously, overlap you can fix. I'm not gonna be bothering because I'm a developer now. But let me just ask it to animate, because that's all the jazz right now, right? So let's say animate the cards to show up one by one. I'm breaking everything from UX heuristics perspective, by the way, but it's shit, it's on the record, right? I was about to say off the record. Animate the cards to show one by one upon page load, and that means upon the page is loaded. Let's see what it does. Right, so this is another heavy thing. I don't know, maybe Adriana, you're obviously in, I think you mentioned in the previous live stream that you had experience with front end, right? Like that's your background. To you, it's probably going to be easy. But to me, like animation of CSS has always been painful because I wouldn't know where to start. Again, from very old school perspective. Let's just add those bits and bobs. I got a donation. How cool. What do you think about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? No thoughts. I think it's cool. That's about it. This is incredible. Nice. I got stuck with it, came to use Python and virtual machines. Yeah, like anyway, it's impressive. I think everybody agrees. Even Wolftrepreneur, who's obviously more keen in like martial arts. All right, let me just add that just to see what it does. Right, saving, and right. Did it animate? Yeah, it did. Okay, so you see this is pretty fancy, right? Like you could obviously adapt it and make it more. Now, the last thing, and I know I already said the last thing, but yeah, Bram, this is it. You know how to code now. And I'm not even being like, not saying it in jest as well. It's like you can literally start hacking stuff, and that's the point. Like for me, back in the day, I learned a lot of the stuff. Maybe Adriana, if you're still on a live stream, how did you learn to actually code? I'm sure you learned by copying or taking apps which existed and then you hacked it. And this is exactly the same way. Like learning to code for anyone, doesn't matter your background, is like a click of the fingers, because as long as you invest the time to look exactly why it does what it does, you read these instructions, you are going to be way, way ahead. What did I want to do? Oh, I wanted to add a chart from our screenshots. So let's add, maybe let's, okay, I'm just going to ask, add the charts from the image under the card components, make the charts interactable, and also display information upon mouse over. Boom. So for those who are late to this stream, I'm literally, where are you now? I'm missing my point. I literally took, not this, I literally took this Figma thing, again, by Usman and Deiko. I'm probably butchering the name, but I literally took this, and this is what we're using to then replicate as a simple workflow. Component by component, we're creating this app, which is a static representation. Okay, so we need chart, some sort of section, chart.js. Let's add that to index.html. So it's gonna add somewhere here. Cool. Okay, and this is where sometimes the cursor is quite slow, because you're gonna see, I know sometimes it's confusing. If you can see as well on my screen, it's like it took so long to insert this bit of code that I could just have copied it manually. So it's another thing which sometimes it's really hard to tell if it's actually working or is it just a performance-based delay. Let me close the terminal for now and add new HTML. I don't know if it even changed. Shoot, we have so much content right now. And then on script.js, we need to add this. No. You see, sometimes it's confused because it wants to add to the JS file. So I'm just going to add to our JS. And I'm going to break stuff intentionally, I think, just to show you that it can actually break stuff. I'm going to add that there. Probably wrong place. Didn't even look. And then where does this go? Document selector, closest BG. I don't think this goes to the script page. You see, this is where my limited understanding would... Right, I think it should go actually. Submit this month, this week. I think it should go somewhere here, but let's attempt and make some mistakes, right? So I would just add that. Let's see if that works. Probably won't work. Yeah, you see, it added like basic stuff, but it didn't add the actual charts. And it also broke the actual side menu. Right, one thing at a time. The charts are not showing. How can I fix it? Okay, I'm being rude. But that's how you can sort it out. Let's see if it's actually anything in output in debug. No, we should probably add some checks. Right, so I did obviously add it in random places. First, make sure you included charts.js, yada yada. I did. Next, let's modify the JavaScript. Right, let's apply it, because obviously I went off piste of that. And then ensure that HTML structure for the charts is correct and the canvas elements are correctly. So now I have to manually go and check. You see, that's where you're gonna be in this mode of kind of like digging in the sandbox and trying to understand what you're doing right and what you're not doing right. So canvas ID summary, can I search? Marketing chart and marketing chart. Okay, I think I found it. So this is what I need. Instead of that summary chart, I just don't know. Yeah, I think this is it. Obviously, we're gonna test it in production. No, still not showing. Oh, it actually needed to add some CSS too, but that wouldn't matter, I think. This is how you troubleshoot though. This is the type of, when I was again making that design news, the Hacker News clone for designers, when I cloned it, I literally went through loops of this troubleshooting because I made it in React immediately to be rendered on service side. So, you know, it's only a matter of time before you end up banging your head against a wall and trying to fix it. But that's the beauty of it, to code with no code. Okay, script. Let's accept that. I don't know what it did. Index HTML. Let's accept that. Okay, that's looking pretty good. A lot of changes and some errors. No. Okay, those two saved. So it's trying different things, and it's quite radical things. And then also console log. So I guess to check if it's working or not. Now, another thing I heard that if you, let's say, would actually work with existing code bases, and let's say your design system is added to this, or you have your own CSS and stuff, it should consider what you have. For example, I attached the Tailwind CSS framework and front-end framework. It's adding now also Charts.js framework, so it's going to consider only those things. But if I would now say, like those feather icons in the beginning, add feather icons, it's going to remake and consider that now. Accept. And then more styles. Okay, it take a while. All right, let's see if we fixed the bug. Nay, it doesn't want to. Wait. Let me see. I don't know if I put document query. This part for me, I think, is maybe not where it should be. I'm just going to delete and see what happens. Right, let's see if I'm going to push it to a limit. What's the chat saying? Designers have the ability to scale and ship product services at the individual level, for sure. Animation on HTML today, Tailwind. The advantage here, you can ask it, add comments on every line explaining the code. Yeah, I guess that's another thing. Like basically, whatever you can think of, it can do it for you. All right, let's... first, let's verify the chart is actually loaded. So, okay, let's add that to HTML. Oh, suggestion, maybe ask it to use D3JS from JSON. Is that like a 3D or some sort of other library for charts? Let me just try this, and then if not, we can maybe ask it to replace entirely. You know, it just might not be... Oh, it's taking forever now. Yeah, it took forever just to add one line. This could be so confusing for someone who doesn't know that it's just one line. Where did I go now? Okay, 1, 2, 3. So 1 is this. Again, navigating this chat after a while is a headache, because it's almost hard to tell which of the steps are you on and to what extent do you need to change it. Okay, that I think is applied, and then this is not. Ensure HTML structure in charts is correct. Marketing chart and summary chart. Okay, let's save that. Marketing chart, and what was the other one? And summary chart. Yeah, this is two different things. I mean, this is, I guess, way less code. 2 divs. All right, I'm just gonna go blind. Probably gonna make decrease one div here and there or something. And then let's add more CSS or remake it. Again, this is generative, right? So that's why it's gonna try until it gets the answer. Okay, now it did, but it removed our other bits, right? So obviously this is not too bad. If we see what we wanted it to look like, that's the original, that's the other one. So it, you know, it had way too many instructions, probably couldn't process it. I'm sure the computer vision there is also limited, and then prompts as well. Yeah, okay. Obviously, let's clean it up. Let me just return the cards. The cards have disappeared. Bring them back. Also, take off the red border from charts. Let's see if it actually can revert the changes. Which is actually one of the things which a lot of the people on Twitter have been complaining about, that inevitably, because it's generative, it doesn't consider what you have in a way. It could override, and then you can miss things out. Like, we're already breaking stuff which worked. Like the menu, let's say. You see the icons are gone. So I broke it by trying to make it, and I can't really revert it anymore. All right, let me see if I can get back at least the cards. All right, what's chat is saying? Can I suggest something? Once a specific task is done, close the chat, Control L, open a new chat. Anytime you want to continue the last feature, you go back to the chat history and continue from that. Interesting. Oh, so you can add chats. Okay. Brilliant. We are learning together. I didn't know that you can actually add more chats than one. So I wonder, like, and that's from Woltrapreneur. Does it refer to a previous chat at all, or is it like always a fresh start? Like, does it build upon like the considerations? I see. So you can basically chat up on different topics. I guess that makes sense, because as you can see, our chat is now endless. Let me just see if that is it actually applying it or not. Just want to finish this demo without breaking it, just so it's in a good state. All right, so applied that. This is styles. Applied that. Save, and then scripts. I don't know why it would need to update the scripts, probably because it removed them. All right, let's see if it fixes it. No, it didn't. It just recolored. I wonder how can we get back. Would it know? Oh, re-add. I made a mistake. I wonder if it's going to interpret it right. AI chat UX improvement idea. Mark a reply with stars, thumbs up or down based on how helpful it was. Yeah, I guess you could. If I wonder to what extent. Actually, that's a really good starter. I wonder to what extent do you actually train the model itself? Like, because the data is pushed back to Claude, I guess, because this is using Claude as a model. But I wonder if they're doing anything else. Okay, so nice. So I guess it can get back. I apologize for oversight. Let's reintegrate the original metric cards with the correct data. Here's the updated HTML for the cards section. Okay, let's see. I accept. I hope it's right. scripts. Let's accept, and that's it. All right. Let's see if that works. No, it doesn't. Oh, it's hiding. So it's there. Ah, fascinating. Probably maybe they have stopped the animations. First, make sure your things. Oh, okay, now it wants me to go through manually and check that everything is there. All right, let's do that just to demo the actual workflow. So it's not there. Debug. No, it's not there. Some logging. Then adds important as well to override. So that's quite desperate too. Probably font color. No, it's not. It's missing a full component. No, it doesn't know. Okay. Made a mistake. Page load. Let's restart it. Yeah, you see, I'm too lazy to check back and forth, and it's quite painful too. They need to improve the overall UX for it. Did it apply? Because the chat interaction should be very clearly chat, and the actual code should be really clearly code. Right, accept styles. So that's pretty good. Nothing changed, and then script. Okay, new line added, I guess. Okay, moment of truth. Boom. So it does appear, except the border, I don't really want it. And where is it coming from? Okay, probably warning message. No. Yellow border. I'm just gonna ask it. Where does the red border in metrics components coming from? Instead of changing, just asking like where is it actually located so I can update it. In your HTML, find this line. You see, it should tell me which line. Like all the lines are numbered. Border red. So now I have to manually. This is yet another UX improvement. Like the tie-in between chat mode and that mode should be very snappy. That's not the one. Border. Okay, I'm gonna refer to that 2x solid red. What? I guess it's not here. Is it the syntax of a request? Okay, it is here. It probably was just how it's put. All right, so I'm gonna remove just a border. Very manual, old school way. All right. All right. I don't know why it made this selected, but kind of cool, right? Like, I mean, overall, it's obviously very rough. It's very, it needs a lot of tweaking. You can update things. You can ask to animate things. You can ask it to add pages to other things. As you can see, it tries to tab to different pages, but that thing in the beginning didn't work. And then contact support doesn't work anymore. So it overrode something too. So there's obviously issues. One other thing which might be interesting for people, obviously there's so much more. Like I can keep on making changes, or do let me know if you want me to make changes. But I want to demo one more thing. And that's because the combination between Claude and Cursor AI, I hope you already kind of can see that if you open Cursor AI, you should be able to create your index HTML, JS page, styles page, and then just go ham, typing and saying, hey, do this, do that, adjust this, adjust that. Or you can immediately go and see, okay, where does it do this thing? And it's going to tell you, go and find that line, which you need to find manually, which is a shame. But you can immediately go and understand what code in what space means and what does it do, especially if you are like you have limited understanding of the code itself, or like simple HTML, CSS. Now the next thing is how to make these richer apps or bigger apps. And this is obviously we don't have forever, and I don't want to bore you, but the combination of Claude as an interface, you could use ChatGPT 2 probably, but somehow internet isn't as loud about ChatGPT. It's more loud about Claude plus Cursor as a combination. How you do that is very simply, if I would to open Claude and I would ask it to something I did before, I'm literally gonna use maybe the same prompt, which I was saying, like generate the code and instructions for a let's just say Twitter clone with a simple profile page, a news feed, and a settings page, let's say. Add a mock API, just so that API that feeds a dummy data for tweets containing an image for the author, date, and let's say content of the tweet, which is limited to 200 characters. Let's just put that like arbitrary instructions. So that should give us, and that's how you could kind of go and use it. Obviously gonna create a simple React app. And it's gonna give you instructions step by step of how you could do that. Literally tells, okay, you can create the React project this way. You can do this, that. This is your CSS. This is how you start the actual thing. So I'm going to go ahead and really quickly try to set it up just so you see it. Because once you have something much more smarter, much more flexible, much more server-side oriented, that's where you can create even, more dynamic apps as well, feeding the data back and forth. So this is just React. So I'm going to literally follow the instructions. Let me just drag that aside. I'm going to close that and reopen a new app. I'm going to add a new folder. I'm going to call it tweet. Just so you know, I'm adding it in repos, tweet. I'm going to open that folder. Repos, tweet. And I'm gonna go to terminal, and this is maybe a bit of a tutorial, but that's how you can, as you can see, I'm right now is in VA's MacBook Pro in the folder tweet, and my username is blah, 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 blah. And I can literally just copy one line at a time and just install a React app or set up the foundations, the actual what it has to have basically. As you can see, it's going to start adding packages. I'm hoping no errors as well between the versions and stuff, because that's painful to solve, but that's how you ultimately can set up a much more smarter React app. And the same way, you don't fear, because you don't have to know enough about React. You don't have to. You can just basically learn on the go too. And you haven't heard this from me. I know a lot of developers are going to be angry, but it doesn't matter. It's like that's how you could start. Let's see. Let's hope it actually sets it up quick, because it's taking a bit. Usually it's quite instant. What is everyone else thinking about this? Any considerations? Any ideas? With the development of prompt engineering, which roles do you think these tools will replace, if any, designers or front end? I don't see it replacing any roles. It's just the tools. It's just the jobs are going to look differently. So if you're a designer, you might be able to code a bit more or update your designs again and iterate. Some example, if you missed it, Yoon, I mentioned that, let's say, if you have your Figma design and developer takes this and implements it roughly, just like I did with that, limited dashboard thing, you can go and chip at it. You can update it yourself. You can spend an hour or two tweaking it, adding validation, error messages. You can do a lot of the things which you couldn't have done before because of limited understanding. Now you don't need to have extensive coding experience. You can just basically pick this up, and on GitHub you can do version control together. Same for front-end engineering. I think front-end engineers are going to be much more empowered to do it quicker, because that's ultimately the point of this. I don't know to what extent you are going to need as many front-end engineers, but I think it's just a tool they can use too. And I think it's, again, doing all these things, it's so painful because it takes so much time. Like, it's such a pleasure from me, from someone who has coded back in the day extensively. I mean, saving 2 weeks on a simple app, which I can set up in 2 hours, is, I could literally create my own SaaS if I really want to. Like, again, it's going to come down to the point of how bad do you want and what do you want. If you really want it bad enough to create your own startup, be an entrepreneur and use these tools because you're skilled in design and engineering, the pathway is yours, right? If you really want to go deep into development, like, now is the opportunity here, because someone else can pick up these, aesthetic things or these tweaks here and there. Same for designers. Like, if you want to ensure the quality of your product, you're going to have so many tools to ensure the quality of your product. And many more things. But I'm struggling to understand, why is it taking so long? Probably going to need to restart. Let me just restart the same stuff. It shouldn't take so long. Maybe I'm just being impatient. Let's try again. Okay, now we're going. As you can see in the terminal, and by the way, you open the terminal in a corner on any VS Code or Cursor AI. The terminal is how you interact with your command line. That's where you would put all these different, you've probably seen, let's say, if you looked at how do you set up React app, again, I'm making a basic tutorial, so bear with me. You would literally go and use those lines to install all the different packages and libraries, and that's what you need for the app to run. So let's say if it's React app, you might need some sort of lint, you might need some other bits, but as you can see, it immediately installed the app. And if I see on my thing, the app is here, right? And if I see here in the structure of the app, it's also here. So we have a simple React app. And if I go and say, I think npm start, that's gonna launch. It should launch. Npm start. What is missing? Oh, I forgot to go into the folder. Twitter clone, which is one thing which is quite annoying in the beginning, but you kind of have to learn how to navigate with command line. CD is basically going in. I can't even name what's to go out. There is it 2 dots and a dash or something along those lines? Anyhow, don't ask me. I would need to Google it, and I'm sure some developers too. So if we are in the right folder, I'm just going to run that npm start, and that should run as a local server or a local environment. It's just taking so long. I don't know if it's my internet. As a designer that worked at a large, it's hiding at a large corp, I think you're saying, over several years. Entrepreneurship is the goal now. Yeah, I think a lot of designers, and to be honest, again, a feature is a lot of the people running their own thing. Okay, let's see if it loads in our React app. It still doesn't, so I'm gonna keep it away. Okay, boom. So it loaded in a simple React app. As you can see, it has nothing in it. Localhost 3000, the port, so that's how we test that we have. So Claude helped me to run it, right? Here are the instructions basically. And then what I can do is install different dependencies. Obviously I jumped over. I'm just gonna quit it. Is it Control-C? Yes, quitting is Control-C. Totally forgot how to do that, but I think muscle memory. And I'm gonna install, I'm literally following the, go back. I'm literally following that instructions which are given me by the actual app. So let's see if I'm installing those dependencies. There are some vulnerabilities. Don't care about that. And then we're going to replace the contents of source app.js and create the component file shown in a first code artifact. So as you can see, the Claude gives me artifact. I can just literally say, well, it should give me a way to copy it quickly, but it doesn't. I'm just going to copy that. Going to go to my app, if I can find it, app.js. That's where the most of the code is going to be. Going to paste it in. I think that was comment. Going to save it. I'm not yet previewing because every time I would need to preview, I would need to go npm start. So let me go back to Claude. And I think it's going to ask me to do the same with index. Oh, mock API, which is what I asked them to pull up, is just a JS file, I hope, if it understood me. Doesn't want to open. Okay, copy content, maybe it's just a preview. Create a new file, app API, mock API. All right, so we need to create, this is purely for the demos, by the way. Was it mock API.js? And then I'm gonna paste the API. And this is just a content which I would receive through a typical API, let's say. And then what we need is update the index CSS. So I'm just gonna copy that, and then it should run. So let's see what it's gonna produce. Index CSS, boom. I think there's errors in this one. Navbar, probably missing a component. And just gonna run it to see what the error is, so I'm gonna show you how I would troubleshoot as well myself. Cool. So this is the example I was talking to you about before, okay, that you can literally just take the error. I'm gonna push it down. go to your cursor chat and say, solve this error. I think there's 2 actually. And then cursor is going to give you instructions. And by the way, because the actual React app is running in the background, as I'm changing the code, it should update and it should solve. So I don't need to repost or rerun the actual app. I hope that makes sense, by the way, because this is like a level 2 from what I was showing before. So it's saying that we need to create quite a few components. I'm going to apply that. And then I need to manually create those components, which is fair. As you can see, I'm still getting a lot of errors, but if I follow the cursor with that Claude foundations, it should be fine. So source components. So in a source, I need components. And the components are going to be basically the blocks of actual code or the actual apps. So one is going to be navbar.js. And then there's going to be newsfeed.js. And this is how you typically would structure your React apps. So it's not anything new for people who have done it, but just so you understand, it's quite atomic from a design systems perspective. You could think it that way. And I'm literally just creating those things, settings.js. And then it says, okay, now for each should contain the respective component code. So it's going to give us errors, and like we're going to need to ask them to give us, okay, this. Okay. Switch. Going to ask it to generate the content so I know exactly. Newsfeed. Okay, so I'm going to copy that too. Newsfeed. Boom. And then I'm going to copy the tweet. Boom. And then I'm going to copy the profile. It's going to be a mess, by the way, so we're going to need to figure it out. But that's roughly a workflow if you would want to build a functional app with React with limited knowledge. Right, now this error is something to do with a DOM. Error, not even going to ask, it's going to know that sort it for me. The error you're encountering is due to changes in React Router DOM library. In newer versions, the switch component, yeah, good. Let's apply it. I trust you. Save. Boom. So our app, now we got Twitter. We have home, we have profile, we have settings. And as you can see, there's a lot of presumed stuff which we can then add. And this is our newsfeed. Let me just add more data. Data to mock API, more tweets, and also add images for authors. Use dummy images. Let's see if it uses any APIs from outside so I can just generate some examples. Newsfeed.js. So it adds this not in the mock API. I guess it's not using it. Okay, it's fine. Let's just hard code it for a demo. And then newsfeed. Okay, I added that. Fine. Tweet.js. Boom. So it added probably imagery. I'm going to save those files because we cannot work without them. And then CSS. So I'm just going to copy the CSS. Where is app CSS? Boom. And then import CSS in your tweet.js file. Boom. So it basically holds my hand, right? If I want to do something, I'm just importing that. Let me see what we end up with. No, that's not the right one. That's not the right one. That also isn't. All the versions of a dead thing. Sort of, but not. More errors. Great. We're going to figure this out. Again, we're going to post the error, see exactly what that does. Tweet.js. So that is roughly what we have. Oh, I actually have two. Okay, I'm going to correct that. Let's see if there's any other changes. Right, so was it just that? You can see that there is more errors. Right, what's the fat? File does not exist in your project yet. Okay, so I need to create it. Repos tweet. First, create a new file named tweet CSS. You see, I don't want it. This is where it would create spaghetti code. I actually know, as someone who has done programming, that it should go somewhere else, but F it. Let me just follow the instructions. Just for the hasteness perspective, because let's see if it adds. Yeah, it did add. And then we need to update with tweet.js. Right. Boom. Twitter. So we made a Twitter, right, with fake data. And we can then obviously do something with this and make it functional. Like, one thing which we could do is make a page for each of these. So let's say make everything clickable, or make it retweetable, or like, let me just say, add a feature for a user to be able to like and unlike a tweet, increase or decrease the counter of likes per tweet accordingly. So we're going to add some logic that we as a user would be able to tap and decrease or increase the likes, let's say. But it's going to add so much spaghetti code, I can already tell. And I'm sure everyone who worked with React before can tell as well. But it's okay. We're not actually shipping to X just yet. All right. So if I do this, yeah, you see I can like and unlike. Boom. That's a functionality. Obviously, this is locally run, but you as a designer or as a design engineer, you can immediately test this. Like, basically, you could literally create a functional app to test, user test stuff. You know, gone are the days where we as designers relied on Axure, let's say, because it was the only tool where we made forms happen. Now we could literally pull this up. In the last hour and a little bit, like almost 2 hours, we went through 2 or 3 apps. Some were very simple, but you immediately could tell how I could work with this, right? Like, look, I can literally do this. And I could just do something else. For example, say, when the tweets are liked, place them in the profile page. So every time I like the tweet, it puts in a profile page, and let's see if that actually works. Again, I'm not even looking at the code. I'm literally just having a very quick newsfeed. That I don't like that it's gonna remove it. So it's probably gonna, okay, let me reject that. And I'm gonna return reject. Oh, I don't know if I'm now probably effed it up a little bit, because it's gonna be a mixed bag. Or maybe not. Okay, this is what I want. I hope it's gonna come. So if the tweets are liked, they should be placed on the profile page. Except, so it added a template basically, which is the content template. And then we're saying, once I like a tweet, make that content appear in that template. All right, I think, is that it? Okay, there's an error. I'm gonna immediately try to solve. All right. Profile CSS. Yeah, so it added, the React added additional CSS file. Again, spaghetti stuff. I don't know if we need it, but I'm just gonna add it. So it's almost like you have to follow the instructions to make it right? Let's see, I'm just gonna add profile CSS to profile, and let's see if that actually works. Boom. So this is my profile page. And if I like a tweet from Jane Smith and Tech Enthusiast, it should actually appear on this page. No like tweets yet. Doesn't appear. Add them. Boom. Let's see if that actually works. Okay, it's remaking the actual template now. I don't know if this is a good sign or not, but it's gonna version heavily across the board. So every time you challenge it, I guess it actually goes somewhere. Okay, I'm gonna add 3 tweets. No, still doesn't add. Let's try again. Now we need to make this. That's the beauty of, or a dark beauty of the code, that you need to now make. Right, so like tweets, accept, and then that. Okay, re-added the template. Right, let's see if that works. Have to solve this. Boom, boom. No. Tweet on a main page. Make a copy of it and display as a like tweet on a profile page. Let's try again. Because maybe it listens to me very literally, where it's just displaying. Yeah, that's just a comment removal. That's, you see, it just removes the comment or rewards the comment. Maybe we found the ceiling, which shouldn't be. I think maybe it's somewhere in between me. Right. Let's see. No. let's complain. By the way, let me know your thoughts, because I know some of you are still here. Maybe you know how to solve this, or what prompt should I use to solve it? Because it doesn't really want to budge. Yeah, it just updates the console log. Obviously, it's not going to make a change. Oh, do I need to rerun it? Localhost. Don't know. Probably would need to go into this exploration frenzy to figure out like what's going on. Do I need to be more literal or like more descriptive? Every time a user likes a tweet, put the tweet data, no, put the data of that tweet on the profile page under the liked tweets. Store this information in cookies. Maybe that's a missing bit. Maybe we're reloading the state and then it doesn't store it locally. Maybe that's too technical. We need to install the JS cookie. Okay, this is the real deal now. Let me just install that. Boom, we installed the library, and now we need to install. This is so quick, by the way. I'm like mind blown that we can do this in so quick. That's one line removed. That's it. Okay, so it added that we are storing the cookies. Let's see if there's any errors. Right, I need to rerun it. npm start. Okay, I need to solve this. This is the most important part right now. So if I go to profile, there is no like tweets. If I like a few tweets, it doesn't. Ah. Okay, wait. That then the app is, so that then the page is reloaded. The like tweets show. Take a break, clear your mind, and hopefully win the day. Yeah, maybe that's the right thing, but like, I think this is very simple. Like, it should be very simple. Maybe my thinking is not right of like how I approach this. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe this is a ceiling. One last thing, just so I don't like, I'm probably gonna be chipping at it after a live stream until I get it. One thing what I want to do is really, I don't think this app runs on Tailwind, so I'm just gonna add Tailwind styles and make the app look clean. Let's see if it's gonna interpret right. Okay, I need to install another library. But I hope that makes sense. Like immediately you can go about and make something out of that. It's just never been easier, especially with limited knowledge. So we need to add some exports into app.js. No, this should be added into config. Where is it now? Config. Boom. And then we add this to index CSS and then to index.js and then to the app itself. So all the dependencies are added and then there as well. And then there as well. So everything references. Wait, what was that? I don't know if I like this specifically. I'm gonna leave that for now because it's replacing the data. And then tweet.js is just gonna cut some bits out, which is my fear. And the settings. Okay, as you can see, it cut out the content as well, even if I didn't ask. Right, let's start the app again and let's finish it. Let's see if that actually makes it look a bit more presentable. Yeah, that's a bit more presentable, I guess you could call it that, right? So, and it still works. I think, you know, we would then ask, obviously, position these things somewhere else, realign it a bit. You can give specific instructions, but that's that. I hope this is actually adding value to everyone because, again, there's so much more we could explore, and I think we could spend hours just on that thing of me trying to put the like tweets here. I mean, I would need to, yeah, I'm gonna need to maybe ask Claude or something along those lines. Like, I wonder if I can export this code, put it into Claude, find out what's missing and where my logic is, because these bigger architectural questions, and this is maybe a tip, what I found out that's why I started in Claude. You can tell it, hey, my app is like this, give me this rough structure. And when it gives you these pages and things like that, you have to have, or like how do you add mock API and stuff like that. But I hope that makes sense because you can literally use the free tools because Cursor AI is, I think, limited free, but it's free to start. And I haven't paid a buck for Cursor yet, by the way, and I used quite a few hours. With that, I obviously subscribe to Claude, but again, it's up to you how you want to use it. The actual API allows you to, again, select GPT-4o, GPT-3.5, things of that nature, Cursor small, so you can use the model, whichever you want within Cursor, and just go crazy. I'm going to just finish off that I think the possibilities are immense here. Like, you can literally create this Twitter clone, and it doesn't have to be entrepreneurial. Again, you can take it that way if you want it bad enough, because it's a lot of work, less work, but still a lot of work. But if you are a product designer, UX researcher, UX designer, you can literally prototype functional apps. You know, the Wizard of Oz experiments, no longer you need to rely on Figma, UXPin, or Axure and spend hours there. You can spend a couple of hours on this and likely get the results you need in lesser time. Because when you user test something like desirability or simple usability, you don't even need to have it on brand. You know, in some scenarios, like that could work for you. And I bet if I would ask this right now to include the gov.uk GDS design system styles, I wonder if that would even fetch. But basically, if you have your design system or some sort of code base and it's already there, it's written by your developers, again, you could tap into it and use it. As you can see, gov.uk frontend is there. So I can use their design system, I can use their styles, their accessibility platform, everything. Everything is already there in the libraries I can use and apply and, you know, have them accessible and stuff like that. So the possibilities are endless. If you're rewatching this or watching this, do let me know if you want to follow up. Maybe we can build something more complex together, or maybe you want a tutorial specifically on HTML, CSS, but I would just welcome you to go to the W3 school or any other platform, spend a day or two, learn the basics, and then you're going to be golden. You can just go ahead and create your apps with Cursor. Doesn't matter how, again, in depth your knowledge is. But I hope this is useful. Again, thank you so much for tuning in, and as per usual, I'll see you next time.